I want to talk to you about booking in general, first of all. And so why don't you tell us your booking resume and background? And how you
Well, it goes back into the early 80s, mate, when I come over here and we were working a few territories around. And originally we were coming up with the ideas on what to do to attract the crowd back each week and that. And Butch and me would go to the promoters. Oh no, it started in the 70s. Stu Hart. There you are, there's a name. We'd go up to Stu Hart's house on the hill on a Sunday afternoon and sit down and strategize how we would go for the next 2 months, 3 months and that. And we came up with good ideas and we filled the houses. We had a good crew there at the time. And later on, when we come to the States, the same thing happened. We would suggest things, and in the end, one of the promoters says, "Would I like you to take the book?" And hence, that's when I started booking territories.
That was the first time you actually were given
we were given the book, yeah. Originally, a lot of places, when I first come over this way with Butch, you'd go to the promoter would sit down on ideas and you'd throw out ideas of what you did in other territories and that, and how you got the houses up and how things went and that. And we were two guys from down under and we didn't know the system in the States. All we knew was go out there, kick your ass and put that New Zealand flag up and knock America. Yeah, air conditioning cars, air conditioning homes and air conditioning women. And that used to get heat.
Yeah.
And then we started doing that around the country verbally with that down under accent and pushing that New Zealand flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'd come into territory then and we'd suggest to the promoter, let us run a rampage over the talent for the first 4 weeks. And a lot of the talent when we came in to do television shows never got into the ring. We jumped out and got on them, got DQ'd or disqualified, but we made a noise. And then the following, come 4 to 6 weeks, we'd feel it how we were going, and then we'd say to them, well, let's do something a bit different. We would be knocking this, whatever state, each territory or that had a main state at the time, like Florida, Championship,
sure.
You know, the Mid-South, and there was down in Wass's territory, there was Jerry Jarrett's territory, there was a couple of territories in Florida, there's Puerto Rico, these are territories that we went into, and that were mainly in the South at the time, and where we went into after about 4 weeks or 6 weeks, we actually we would take a map of the state into the interview room and show it the first, after 4 weeks, this state is we call it the latrine of USA and blah, 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 and get there, knock the state. And of course, down in the South, where they believed they were going to rise and take over the North again, they used to get really irritated. And finally, when we thought it was about right, we'd we'd be in their locker room doing an interview, and take that flag and go into where the toilet is, with the throne, as you call it,
sure.
Sit on the throne, and we would hold the map up and say, well, this is what we think of this state, and all you people, and screw it up and pushed it down the toilet, flush it down, pushing it down with the New Zealand flag, which
got a little heat.
Got a little heat, and then someone would step up from the territory. One of the main names would step. The promoter would go to say, "Well, we can't have this. You disgrace us. We have to finish you. You can't." The television station says, due to what you put on television, we have to get rid of them. The babyface, a good guy, would step up and say, "Well, keep him and we'll beat their ass and send them home." You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's how the angle started. A guy would step up to the plate, and the battle would be on.
Where were you first? What year was it when you were first given the book officially to book a territory on your own? What year would that have been?
83.
Okay.
Joe Blanchard.
And did you book consistently in different territories through that time? Or?
Yeah, no, I went from Joe Blanchard and then for a year and a half, I'd say. Then I went to Puerto Rico the second time there for a couple of years, and a year and a half, 2 years.
For Carlos?
Yeah, Carlos, and then we came in for Bill Watts, and I was supposed to take the book there, but they had a friend of mine, Dick Slater, who had the book and that, and I'd known Dickie for a while before because I had been in Florida with him, and they said, you want to take over, but they would keep him in the territory, and to me, maybe this was wrong thinking at the time. They gave me the book. Well, I was coming there to do the book, but you usually, when you've got a booker coming in, you usually get rid of the other booker send them to another territory out of the way. And they said, "Oh, Dickie's staying," and I never took the book there, which was a downfall, because that territory was a big territory. It covered, I say, nearly half of the southern territories. Louisiana, it covered all the south, bit of Texas, Louisiana, over to Florida, the Alabama,
Arkansas,
and Arkansas up into Kansas, and we had a load of talent there at the time. There was Jake, and there was Ted DiBiase, Dr. Death, and there was Dick Murdoch, bless his soul. There was Buzz Sawyer. There was talent galore.
Sure.
And the Ultimate Warrior and Sting came in there too. That was one of their first territories, or maybe their second territory.
So when you're working that hardcore style, if you're the booker, and you want someone to have a real blood and guts match, what do you tell them? What are the elements of putting together a match like that versus just a typical mat wrestling?
Well, you have to start a story, of course, mate. The story of get that feud built up, and then get out of hand. Of course, we had our own matches that we just come in and do wrestling matches at the start, and they get rough and rugged. And of course, we had a flag that we used to screw in half, and it was a steel. It wasn't a flagpole like a lot of them around now. We had a steel flagpole, and a few people had to go to hospital and get stitched up because it was a bit severe. And we'll get to that later. And we'd use that in the match, and then you would start with normal wrestling matches, and then no DQ matches, and then maybe not so much on time limit, because we like to give them action. So we went from that to a standard boot camp match. We called it a New Zealand boot camp, where we'd come in in our army gear with our helmets on, steel helmets and all that stuff. They could wear what they like. Some of them wore motorbike helmets and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So you couldn't knock them over the head with the flagpole and knock them out. And we'd start that, and then after that, we'd get more brutal, and we may put have a flag match. US flag on one pole, Kiwi flag. Kiwi is a New Zealander. Kiwi and New Zealand flag on another pole, and the first one down with the flag would be the winner. But then they would use the flagpole and desecrate their opponents.
Right.
And we did a lot of things. We did a few things in territories which the promoter didn't like at the time, but it drew a lot of money. One time in Oregon, we were working. We had a year feud with Roddy Piper and Rick Martel. There's two names from the past, well-known names in the industry. Rick was one of the greatest baby faces around at the time. A young, good-looking kid, good body, and then Roddy Piper was a hell of a mathematician. He was good on the mic, and when he fired up, he was all arms and legs, bang, 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 and that. And we had a hell of a run there. The one night in Portland, Oregon, at the finish of the match, we laid out Rick Martel and put the flag over his body and did a burial. Piper was handcuffed outside to the ring post, and that. The show was actually running. It used to be started at 8:30 at 8 o'clock in the arena and 8:30 on TV. So there was a 30-minute time difference from it was going straight feed at the time. And then after they seen that, after that, Don Owens was on holiday the night we did that. I remember he was the promoter, and he came back, and we were shoved to 11 o'clock spot, and he went mad. But believe it or not, the houses came up. People would come and book their seats early now because they could go and sit in that front row and get home and see themselves on television.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It helped them in the end. And I still remember doing that burial on the. Anyhow, getting back to the way we went back, we'd do those flag match on that. And then we may do a lumberjack match, the next thing, because we'd do the damage, and then before those guys got up and to beat our ass, we'd head out to the dressing room and leave the people hanging, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then we'd come back with a lumberjack. Somehow we'd get out through the lumberjack, so we'd get our tails kicked, but we'd get the last bit of pepper on salt in the wound, and then get out of Dodge. And then the next thing would be the cage around the ring, right? And then the cage would be the finale, or we'd go to the next step was the barbed wire. After the cage, we'd go to the barbed wire. I think in 1982, we were originally the ones that would put the barbed wire around that way. Years ago, I used to go around and see the barbed wire that way, and all of a sudden, we started putting the barbed wire around the ring that way, so there was a lot of barbed wire. And that, instead of being around the ring post, we'd still have it around the ring post on the outside, but it'd be all bunched up. So when you hit the wire and that, you could pull it out too and wrap it around a guy's head and that. There's many covers that George Napolitano did on those different wrestling magazines. You'll see some barbed wire matches. And then the next step of the barbed wire, we did something there. We had wire clippers or whatever. We always had a manager. We always worked out something to get out of it. We'd come back in a fire match and we'd put those cans around the ring with the at one night, kerosene. Kerosene?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, accelerator. It's an accelerator. But we did. First time I remember doing this, or the second time, we did it in a building and that, and we used a cheap kerosene, and we're only 5 minutes into the match, and the fans couldn't even see the people in the ring. The smoke from the kerosene, but we weren't using the right liquid. That you need clean burning liquid, so the flames are coming out. You have cans are hanging around the top ropes with a fire.
Yeah.
Now they have a fire match. Last time I saw, you have all these big stage things now. They have gas. And they have a tube running around the ring.
Yes.
A tube running around the ring, and they've got the nitrogen over there, whatever they use, the gas, and then they just like a gas stove in your home. They light it, and the flames, and of course you can have the flames burning about that high, and then when the guy goes near the ropes, the guy turns the flames up so they shoot up to 6 feet. That looks great.
Yeah.
Now they have it like this. Times have changed. We had the old tin can that you had your soup. Your big soup thing, we had them hanging around, hooked on the rope. I remember first doing this in Texas or somewhere, I can't remember where, but at least it was a fire match and it drew people.
Yeah.
And people loved it,
Far less control when you're using the soup can.
Yeah.
You got the guy on the meter.
Yeah, the meter,
and far more dangerous.
Times have changed with all the fireworks and stages and that now. Today it's a big floor show.